Titans, season 3, finale of Titans, episode 13, which is entitled Purple Rain. As always, we will go through our spoiler-free thoughts about the episode and then delve into our spoiler thoughts. So the spoiler-free synopsis from HBO Max for this episode is that with Gotham once again at the mercy of Crane's terror, it's all hands on deck for the Titans as they infiltrate Wayne Manor and harness an ancient power that transcends life and death. I feel like that's a little bit of a spoiler, even though it was on the description of the show before you press play. But what did you think of the episode, Colin?
I think that the episode was pretty solid overall. I think that it was a nice ending, even though we kind of railed on it a couple of times in the last few weeks that we talked about it, wondering how certain plot lines and through lines are going to wrap up. I think that they did a pretty good job. And I kept thinking the whole time about how you were talking in the last few weeks of, regarding, it seemed like it's like a show where you want to binge, and it's like that conclusion kind of made me feel as though it was pretty much like a binge worthy type of show, because you know, if you kind of like you said before, Nathan, if it was kind of separate in some ways, like you watch it separately for each week, it just doesn't make any sense. Whereas if you did watch it in a different viewing experience as a binge type of thing, I think it would have been much better, and I think that this ending episode would have made a lot more sense and a lot more satisfying. Whereas I think that in this regard, just watching it, it was sort of satisfying, was okay satisfying, and I didn't think that it was particularly bad or anything like that. There was maybe one, possibly two things that I would say it didn't make any sense, but other than that, I think it was overall okay. I think that overall the season was uneven and just in some instances all over the place. But I also believe that the last few episodes were pretty good overall. They weren't great, but they were okay for what it is. And I think that at the end it left people at a very okay place in terms of where the characters are at the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't know that I disliked the episode, but it was somewhat underwhelming to me. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine. It wasn't bad because they definitely had a lot of bad episodes this season. It was just fine. It seems like for me they took me on a very long ride to end up in I guess okay place at the end. Like you said, there are a couple things. There are a couple things that didn't make sense. I feel like this season in general, if this is not just a spoiler-free review for the episode, but also
Someone's at the front door.
Apparently, someone's at my front door. Not spoiler-free, a spoiler-free evaluation of the season as well. I think that, as you said, it was uneven. I think that they also could have dropped a couple episodes. This thing, and this is something that I think I mentioned last week. This season would have been a lot tighter and nicer with maybe 8 episodes, maybe at most 10. A binge model is probably what's best for how they're writing this show, unless they change what they are going, the way that they're approaching these shows from week to week. And I know that there's been a lot of changes on this show. It was first premiered on DC Universe, and I don't remember. I had DC Universe back in the day, but it wasn't even that long ago. It was like three years ago. But I had DC Universe several years ago. I don't remember if they were dropping them week to week or if they dropped them all at once. But I mean, season 1 had its problems, and season 2 had its problems as well. But I feel like this is a far more uneven than the last 2 seasons. It was far more frustrating than the last 2 seasons. So if they're going to continue in this vein, I don't know that I can recommend anyone watch this week to week. If you're a big DC fan, even if you're a big DC fan, I think you should probably watch it in chunks. And when we review it again next season, we will probably review it in chunks instead of reviewing it week to week, because it's not. I don't think it's. I don't know that there are so many revelations or clear plot threads that you can pick apart every week. You can mostly if we talk about it every week, you're going to be talking about your confusion. So it was fine. It was I think it was. I'm trying to think back to the last two seasons, how I would rate this. I think I would rate it higher than season 1, but not necessarily higher than season 2. I think season 2 was a little bit more focused, even though it had its issues as well. It was so if you're a DC fan, sure, watch it because you like DC stuff. But honestly, I could also recommend DC things that are being created that are probably more worth your time. Like Doom Patrol is more worth your time. So is Young Justice, which just came back last week, and start doing reviews for that. I should have actually started last week, but we'll start doing reviews for that as well. Young Justice is very well written. They've had some seasons that weren't as great as others, but the general writing on that show, that animated show, is better than this show every single season. Mm-hmm. So if you're a DC fan, you could, if you wanted to, you could completely skip this, and there's a lot of DC content coming up. If you saw any of the videos from DC Fandom last week, there is quite a bit of content. There's the Harley Quinn show, which is very well written. There is, I think, a Peacemaker show, which looks good, which is coming up. So, if you skip this show, I don't think you'd be missing much of anything. Especially even if you're starved for DC content, there's a lot of other things that are very well written that are out or coming on their horizon. And even honestly, there are times where this show is more poorly written than even the CW show. So the Batwoman from last year was better written than this season of Titans. Mm-hmm. So was Superman and Lois for this year that premiered this year. Stargirl, the first season and the second season, it was a better show than the Titans right now. And they're written for like younger audiences, but the writing is more consistent. They seem to have a better idea of what they want to do. So it's a weak recommendation for this show and also for the season for me. I mean, I think the episode was fine, but I feel like I was put through quite a bit of stress and annoyance over the last couple of years, over the last 12 weeks, which was like three months of my life to get an okay ending. So that's basically how I feel. And I don't take pleasure in saying that I don't like things, but it's at all. It's just or that I find things fine or mediocre. But it's the show is fine. So yeah, that's how I feel about what they gave us for the season finale, and also the journey that they took us on over the last 3 months.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Also, one other thing that before we go into spoilers is that I did end up watching on HBO Max. This is like about 2 weeks ago. I watched the Batman: The Long Halloween because I read the comics, and it was actually one of the few comics I actually read throughout, and it was a really fascinating story. It was just a really great, well done story. Even though the animation is kind of wonky at times, I loved the whole storyline. Through it, and if you ever had a chance, and a lot of the movies, kind of the live action movies, are based upon that story, especially Dark Knight, and I think even like the new Batman story that's coming out next year with Matt Reeves directing. they're taking some elements of the Long Halloween. So I think that this will be, if you're into the DC content and into Batman, I really suggest that you just watch that as well, just to kind of get a feel for if you have a Batman type of feel, instead of watching instead of watching Titans, or even if you want to go back to the old Teen Titans stuff. I think that's probably a little bit more enjoyable at times, even though it's a little silly and all. But yeah, I do agree with you, Nathan. Is that it's kind of uneven. At times I'm like, why am I watching this? And it was a slog in many ways.
Yeah, So when I listed some things from DC fandom, I was mostly listing the shows that are coming up or the shows that are on the CW. But you're right. There are movies that are also better DC content as well. I actually started watching The Long Halloween today, the part one, and it's already better written in the first half an hour, 45 minutes than most of what I saw this season from Titans. So yeah, there is a lot of things on HBO Max besides Titans that from the DC universe, because they're kind of throwing everything there. That's where the new Batgirl show is going to show up, because they casted that earlier this year, and they mentioned they actually had some of the creators and also the star at DC fandom. So that's coming up. So there's a lot of things that are coming up. So if you drop this show, it'll be fine. It's fine. I think that first of all, you could still support DC if you're like a hardcore DC fan by watching a lot of the other things, and also kind of send a message to them that they need to make better quality content. Now, I will say that this show did get a season 4, so it will get renewed. So that's what kind of alluded to that earlier when I said how we'll change covering the show in the future. So I just hope that since they got it season 4, that was also announced at fandom, that they will make some changes and maybe hear people's frustration on the internet. I mean, not everyone is like a toxic, bring back the Snyderverse DC fan. Some people are just once and not everyone who wanted the Snyderverse is necessarily toxic either. So let me just say that. But it got very toxic over the last couple years before they did the Snyder cut. Some people just like DC stuff and like these characters and want to see them brought to life, either in animation and or live action. They want good, well-written stories, and I think if they listen to the people who they're writing this for, because especially the television shows and the animation, that is for the DC, like the hardcore ish DC fans. Like the movies are for general audiences where they're trying to make billions of dollars, but like they should really listen to the fans when it comes to the television shows and the animation, because they're not those shows aren't hooking like regular people. Regular people don't necessarily watch. There are lots of people who watch superhero movies who don't watch superhero television shows. So I don't know. Anyway, I think we should jump into the spoiler talk of this episode. But before we do, if you're enjoying the conversation, please like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps out the channel. And comment down below as well. So, alright. So, spoiler alert. We will, after this, start spoiling the heck out of this finale. If you haven't seen it, you should go and see it. If you want to. and then join us for the second part of this conversation. So, I think we start the episode with Argus, like V, her Barbara Gordon's right-hand woman for the entire season, outing herself as an Argus agent. She rescues her. She rescues her from some police officers who are intending to, I don't know, like murder her or something. I don't know. The GCPD kind of went off a cliff this season. Like everyone, almost the entire police force is corrupt. Because by the end of the episode, she doesn't really have a police force, and basically Argus is standing as the police force. But yeah, I understand. Like, there has been shows that have written the police force as corrupt, like the Gotham police force is corrupt. But like, it's usually not like everyone. It's even though it's like a lot of them. Some shows, some comics, some animation write a lot of them as corrupt. It doesn't usually write like the entire police force has decided to become criminals, basically. So I found that amusing. I also like this the actress. She shows up in everything. I think I mentioned that earlier. She's definitely working. I think most people might know her from like Schitt's Creek. But she shows up a lot. The Argus agent, woman who played the Argus agent. All right, so after I don't know. So they mention, before we move on to the next thing that happens, when she outs herself as an Argus agent. So I know Argus has shown up in the CW verse, but I don't remember Argus showing up in this show. She mentions Roy Harper, which is Speedy, the guy who played which is Green Arrow's sidekick. But I don't remember Speedy ever showing up in the last 2 seasons of Titans. He sometimes shows up on the Titans roster, so it was a weird reference. Maybe it was just for the audience, but I don't know. So that was just weird for me. Anyway, so the Titans reunite, joined by Tim, and after then Crane detonates an explosive, and then Crane threatens to set off the other bombs after the heroes are unable to solve his clues. So he has a bunch of clues, and they're basically trying to solve them like he's the Riddler or whatever. This sequence was interesting because they were going all over the place, and they were definitely trying very hard. And then Dick decided, you know what, we're not going to do this. We're just going to infiltrate the manor and take him out. And then we're gonna just try to take control of the bombs remotely, because I think one part of the plan was like, can you have? I think he spoke to Superboy. They reconciled very quickly.
That's kind of weird. That was one of the weird parts. But keep going.
He asked him to run around, and he was like, well, if he has them encased in lead, I can't really see them. Which is a good point. Although if there are a bunch of things that are encased in lead, it's basically he could see them because it'd be a bunch of boxes that he can't see around the city. It depends on how much lead. They actually had this. They actually had this as a plot in one of the Superman's comics, right? Lex Luthor put some bombs around the city. And he thought he was being clever by like encasing them in lead. And he was like, I could find them because that was the only things I couldn't see through. Apparently the writers didn't think about that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Anyway, the writers didn't think about that. So we can't have Superboy running around looking for the bombs. So Dick decides to attack Wayne Manor with Gar, Jason, and Tim, who helped deactivate the explosive. So before this, though, before the Titans meet up, we have the aftermath of the ship being exploded. How do you think that was resolved? Like, what do you think of how Blackfire responded to what Conor did to her ship?
I just think that there's a lot of shortcuts. Like they just shortcut their way, and it's almost as though like you are turning in your homework at the very last minute. You're doing your homework in the very last minute, and you turn in, and then you like have some sort of like average to maybe even high quality. I mean, that's how I kind of felt that when I heard that. I was like, oh, okay, it made sense, but it just like it seemed as though it was going to be a disaster. Like you're not going to hand in your homework, but then all of a sudden you hand it in, and it's like, whoa, this is kind of okay, actually. It's not like as disastrous as you thought. So that's kind of like the analogy that I thought throughout some of the things in terms of the plot lines. It was like the resolution of it was pretty much average to maybe okay, I would say, to maybe okay. That was kind of good, to be honest with you. So that's kind of how I felt with that type of resolution. They really did. They kind of fleshed it out later on to say that, oh, you know, he found a way to build the ship through 3D printing and some other ways to do it. And okay, I guess that was fine. And, you know, he did kind of acknowledge the fact that he was being like Superboy was trying to acknowledge the fact that he was being selfish and all. So, I mean, there was kind of satisfying type of resolution, but at the same time, like I said, it was kind of like more of a kind of a last minute thing, and then you turn it in and you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of pretty cool. Same thing goes with I think there was another instance like that. What was it? It was the resolution. There was a couple. Oh, Jason Todd's resolution, and we talked about this for weeks. We were like, we can't redeem this guy, and then they kind of dropped hints in the last episode about how, oh, you're not part of the Titans anymore, but you want to help save Gotham, and like you said last week, Nathan, it's like, how is he able to figure that out? And then they kind of dropped some lines there about how, oh, you know, the other Titans aren't pretty cool with it. Gar had an issue with it, but he was like, okay, let's just kind of go with it, I guess, because the city's in danger. So I think that it could have been the end result could have been proceeded a lot smoother than how they presented it, and it felt as though it was just rushed in some ways. It wasn't. It was like tell, not show. It was like, okay, let's just tell the audience what this is all about and just resolve it like that, and then everything's hunky dory. So it's like, in that sense, I'm like, no, it's like there's no development. It's like you just told us that was going to happen. Same thing with Tim. It's like Tim was the same thing. It's like, okay, he made some moves. Great, he made some moves. He made some fancy moves. He fought with Donna Troy. And you want to be on side? You got some nice potential, kid. Like, okay, you need to be trained. All right. So, kudos for them for not like putting him in a Robin costume immediately. But at the same time, it's like, how do you? This is just a kid, and the parents just let him go. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why did the parents let him go for no reason? It's like there's no kind of through line that made us convinced throughout the episodes that the parents are going to give him up like that. It's just that didn't make any sense. So again, there's some things that are there that were good, but then there's some things that are like, you just kind of tell us, and then that's it. Really, that's all you're going to say about it, and like you said, the Superboy and Dick. Oh, let's just shake hands, and then nothing happened. It's like, but did you remember how angry he was? Like, he was almost like Lex Luthor type of angry when we talked about it last week. And he's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna pass it by. Like nothing's going on because there's nothing. There's more problems that are happening right now. That's more serious than a little squabble. It's like, wait, but you made it a big kind of squabble, made it kind of dramatic and stuff. But
he was going to leave the Titans.
Resolved it like,
yeah.
So it was like, leave the Titans, and like, oh yeah, I'm back on the team now, and I'm helping you figure out where the bombs are. It's like, come on, you know?
Yeah.
So
I for each one of those things, like you said, it was fine. It definitely seemed rushed. It wasn't like an A+. If I'm stretching your analogy, it wasn't an A+ paper, but they got passing grades, and it's fine. I mean, if Jason doesn't come back, the way they resolved it is fine. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
they're not actually they're not completely redeeming him, and he's going somewhere else away from Gotham, and he's not going to San Francisco where everyone else is going. So if they write him out, that's fine. He's no longer Robin. It's fine. Tim's parents saying, "Oh, you belong here," was weird because he's still a child.
Exactly.
Like he's still a teenager, and also him becoming Robin, disconnected from Batman altogether, is also weird. Like Robin to who? Why is he going to San Francisco to become Robin? But okay, sure. I mean, it wouldn't have made sense. I guess it wouldn't have made sense that Bruce took him under his ring, because Bruce showed up in like that last minute. He didn't even know Tim. But it's weird that Bruce is they're taking Tim to San Francisco to train him as Robin, and is going to drop him back off in Gotham. It's like, here, Bruce. Here's your new Robin. But whatever. Like I said, it was fine. Except for his parents letting him go into danger, letting their child.
Was Tim Drake in that computer, like that back computer? Was he one of the Robins that he tried to recruit? Just curious.
I believe so. So what they did is they basically it's people that he had his eye on. Tim Drake was there, and a bunch of other. They had Easter eggs basically for every single Robin that showed up in the comics. Because so Stephanie, I think Brown, spoiler, who became the spoiler later on, showed up in that roster. Also Duke, who is he didn't become a Robin. Actually, I think he was a Robin for a little while, but he's now, I think, Signal or something like that. He operates in the day. I think Tim showed up on his radar. So maybe if they said, maybe they could have written something and said, I've been watching you, or at the end, and then he went away with Bruce. I guess so. But they're leaving. I mean, I understand why they're doing it. They brought this actor on. The Titans are going back to San Francisco, and they're not going to be in Gotham where Bruce is, and they want this actor to be on the next season of Titans. So he went with them. But it doesn't make sense logically within the world of like Batman, and what Robin is supposed to be, like a sidekick to Batman. Why is he not being trained by Batman, or are they trying to say Batman right now is so broken that he can't bring on someone else, because he did kill the Joker. So I don't know. It was a little wonky. It was a little weird. It was shoehorned in because they needed Tim to be with the Titans by the end of the season so he could show up at the next season, but they didn't really write it in a logical way. I think Bruce should have been part of that conversation at the very least. He had a conversation with Dick. He could have said, "You know what? I'm still getting my bearings here, but I trust you to teach him a line or two, something like that." I mean, they were trying to do a lot in this episode, and I can understand why it got handled so, not necessarily poorly, but like it didn't get the attention that it should have gotten. But a lot of things in this episode didn't get the attention that it should have gotten. So if I start at the Tim Drake thing, I'm gonna never stop talking. So like I said, the way that they handled Jason also didn't get necessarily the attention that it deserved, but it got more attention than the Tim Drake thing, basically because the season was about Jason. So they had a nice touching-ish thing with Bruce at the end.
Yes.
They reconciled. Jason asked whether or not he killed the Joker for him, and he said, "Yes, I did." And then he walks away, and he's like, he's he says, "Do you want to be a Titan anymore?" He said, "No, that's not my path or whatever," and then he leaves. He still killed people in one of the Titans.
Yes,
one of the Titans specifically. So if they don't at this point, he's not redeemed. Which this is why I say it's okay. If they had tried to redeem him and put him back on the team, that would have been ridiculous. That
would have been ridiculous.
So I was concerned for 5 weeks now that they were trying to redeem him. So they haven't redeemed him 100%. He's just going his own way, which is kind of the way that Red Hood works. He works with the Bat family when he can, but he's not a joiner. He's less of a joiner than even Batman. Batman says that I'm not a joiner, but he has all these people around him. Plus, he's part of the Justice League. Red Hood is far less of a joiner. But yeah, I after he walks away, he says, "Bye, son." So that was, I guess, touching. I guess he also I think Bruce also admits that the reason that he reacted the way that he did to Jason's fear is because he didn't want to acknowledge his own fear. So that stuff was nice.
Yes.
So that's why I said it was okay. It wasn't perfect, but it was okay. It was the Jason resolution was okay. What else would you say? So Tim, Jason, what else did they try to resolve that we were talking about? Oh, the Conor. I guess what we started talking about this. The Conor and Blackfire thing. Again, if I have to rank how okay things are, I think that's probably lower on the list of okay.
Yeah.
Tim was fine. Jason was better handled. The Conor Blackfire thing. She's just saying, "Oh, it was incredibly selfish, but I've done selfish things." I guess so. Sure. I feel like that's not really. I don't know that they established that she is that empathetic throughout the entire season. She seemed harder than that. Although she does have feelings for him, so that's why I say it was fine. I guess as if they're trying to write a reason why she wasn't immediately very angry, and she did say, "I'll have to see how I'm going to react to this" to Starfire, and Starfire is like, "I'm out. I don't know what's going on. You guys are crazy." You talking about he did something selfish and you would have done the same. Like, you guys deserve it.
Yeah.
You guys deserve each other. I'm out. It's just like, and I think that was well written because what they were saying, right. what he did and her reaction to that was crazy. And a logical person would be like, you know what, you guys have each other. I'm done with this.
But then what happened is that they kind of undercut that by having them back on the Titans team.
Yes.
Like they reassembled.
Yes.
And it's like, that makes no sense then. If you're going to establish that they're going to be on their, like, they're made for each other, be on their own, you two figure it out, then write them off. It's like you just write them off and say, okay, they still haven't resolved anything. But why are you bringing them back in? That doesn't make any sense to me if that was the case.
Yeah, it made very little sense. It would have been fine if they and then they showed up again next season. But I guess they needed them to. Be in the episode to help out. But I don't feel like they did all that much in helping. Well, you know what, they did the stuff at the end. They help with that. The actual purple rain, which is ridiculous. Which was ridiculous.
We were speculating as to what that was, and I think for me, I was okay with it in some ways, but still, it was kind of a stretch. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think they were trying to be clever about it, but then it's kind of like, oh, that was what they were talking about. That's what they were referring to. It's kind of a little bit corny, a little cheesy, but okay, I'll let it go. All right, considering the fact that some of it's uneven. Yeah,
they could have had it.
You're like no, it's just really bad.
No, I just I'm trying to. okay. We haven't established the rules for the Lazarus Pit in this show, but
Yeah.
so you could say, well, this is a completely different universe or whatever, and the rules are different. But the Lazarus Pit has been the Lazarus Pit has been written about so many different times. It showed up in the Batman, the animated series. It showed up in several movies. It showed up in comic books several different times. There's a reason why he needs to be submerged in this thing for it to bring him back. So they create a rainstorm of Lazarus Pit stuff and just a couple sprinkles of water of the Lazarus stuff bring thousands of people back to life. It's okay. The resolution was of this episode was whatever. They didn't need to write bringing back those people together, bringing those people back. They try to. This show sometimes doesn't know what it wants to be. What's the point of having them curse all the time and kill people all the time if they need every day to save the day 100%? They saved everyone else from dying by stopping the rest of the bombs from going off. They didn't need to also write in some weird subplot or where all the people who died are resurrected. That was unnecessary to make this episode good, and it actually distracted from the episode a little bit. If those people had died and those people were dead, they would have had the victory, but they would have had to sit with the fact that a bunch of people died still. Right, and I think that would have made it a stronger. I think that would have made it a stronger episode. It would have been a stronger choice. It would have been a braver choice than trying to jury rig something that made no sense in any other continuity of the DC universe to bring back thousands of people. Like they said between 500 to 2,000 people died, and they brought them back with magic rain. So
yeah.
Yes.
But I also think that the way in which the gas was, the bomb went off and got released, it was like it didn't make any sense to what Scarecrow did before, because it was the water that made the people all crazy and stuff. And is it the same toxin? Or is it a different toxin?
So that I will tell you that what they did there wasn't consistent with the way that Scarecrow usually works. He usually isn't interested in killing people. He's interested in making people afraid. But I feel like that was less of a stretch than having Lazarus rain. Like, in general, Scarecrow's formula. So if you remember in the last episode, Dick and Jason went to the vault where Bruce was holding the scare toxin, or the toxin that Crane had from when they caught him, and he took all that. That was completely different than the thing that he made earlier in the season. The thing that he made earlier in the season,
got it,
was a variation on the thing that he gave Jason to get Jason hooked on. So that was something that he made years ago, and I thought it was going to be scare toxin, that he was going to gas the city with scare toxin and then have them tear each other apart. But I guess that would be too similar to what he made earlier in the season, and they just decided to make it just toxic gas, and it just kill people. Which again, I don't understand what his end game was. Everyone in Gotham is dead. That's his end game. Okay, sure, whatever. But yeah, given that they made that decision, they should have just. And as I said, that decision is not in line with how they usually characterize the Scarecrow. They made that decision, and then they backtracked on that decision with something ridiculous later on. They should have just not made that decision, just had it be scare toxin, so that all those people didn't die, or just commit to the decision and have people die, and have the ending of the episode and also the season be heavy for the Titans, because a bunch of people died. They saved a day. They saved most of the city, but a bunch of people still died. I think that would have been a better writing choice. especially like I said, they try they don't know what they want to be because they I feel like they're cursing just to curse as opposed to cursing with purpose. Not all the time, but a lot of the time.
Right.
And if they're going to add the edge, like there's a reason. There's a reason to have adult themes, so you can actually examine things with nuance. But cursing just for the sake of cursing isn't really adult; it's juvenile. So they have to figure out what they want to be, what the show wants to be, because I think it definitely would have been a stronger writing choice to have left those people die, and actually show that even when the heroes win, they can't win 100%. It would have been stronger. To me, anyway, I think I've seen cartoons that do that better, or animation that drive that home that idea home better than this show. There was no reason for everything to be wrapped up in a bow at the end. So anyway, what else were we missing from this show, from this episode? So Jason makes amends with Bruce. Conor helps design. Yeah, you said Conor helps design a new ship, which, like you said, that undercuts what happens early on when Starfire has a very logical reaction to them saying to whatever they did, like her saying that she would have done the same thing. She has a very logical reaction to that, and then they're like, oh well, they didn't really blow up the ship, or he didn't really blow up the ship, or he did blow up the ship, but he has this eidetic memory. Which is not how Lex Luthor, I think, is ever written. Like, I think Lex Luthor has eidetic memory, and he's the smartest person on the planet, in the DC universe. But I don't know that he could have, even Lex Luthor could have memorized the schematics for a spaceship and recreated it from memory. So that was a bit of a stretch as well. So Conor, and then I think do you remember if Conor goes off with the Titans at the end?
I believe that he does because the thing was that Blackfire was the one who was leaving, and they did have some very kooky thing about going on a road trip. I think that all of them went except for Blackfire.
So the government guy is just,
and also Donna did not go with them as well, because Donna said that she's off on her own as well
to go see Dawn. And also
yes,
and Donna got an offer to be at Argus, so she's not going to be in the next. She's not going to be in the next season, or at least she's not going to be a regular character in the next season. So they brought her back. They brought her back to life, not to be a regular character, which is okay.
Weird. Yeah.
But whatever. So she's going to go and connect with Dawn, and she's also probably going to be an Argus agent. So they'll probably have Dawn and Donna coming in and out like next season for whatever reason. And as you said, Tim accompanies the Titans to San Francisco, which even doesn't make sense. But whatever.
Yep.
I mean, it makes sense in where they wanted to land, but they didn't write enough to connect those dots. They didn't write. They wrote an okay amount, but not like you said, not an A+ amount of material to connect those dots.
Right.
And for some reason, Tim's treat for the team is like taking RV 40 hours to San Francisco instead of the private jet. How is that the treat for the team? It's like, I feel like you can bond once you get to San Francisco, and it would have been a lot nicer for everyone to be on the jet. Now they're cooped up in a...
they want to do a road trip. They want to be road trippy and live the van life, I guess. It's like Titans van life, you know. Maybe that's what they wanted, I guess. Who knows? Maybe. I mean, Gar was definitely stoked about it.
Yeah, but Gar
Rachel, not so much. Rachel was like, no, I really don't like. She and I don't think Starfire was pretty stoked about it either. He's like, 44 hours? Are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, it is 44 hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would have taken the jet. It was like I appreciate it, Dick. I will see you all in San Francisco. You know what? I'll get things ready at Titan's Tower. I'm taking the jet. You guys come back with lots of great stories about your 44-hour trip. But I'm gonna settle in. I'm gonna settle in at Titan's Tower. I'm gonna take the jet. It's like. I almost thought the way that Starfire reacted, I almost thought she was gonna like take the jet, like, and say, you know what, I'm off.
Yeah.
But I guess the jet is going with Donna to see Dawn, and Blackfire stays there to get her ship recreated by the government guy. They just kind of toss that off on a couple of lines. I feel like if it's completely in his brain. Well, I guess he rewrote all the schematics, I guess. So the government guy has it, and he's going to 3D print some of the smaller parts or whatever. I feel like they made a big point of the fact that Conor had to create the power thing. So I guess he's going to come back to create the power. However the ship is powered. The other thing is that. Again, this is why this resolution is like a C at best. You're telling me that this spaceship is made of alloys that are readily available on planet Earth. Like it didn't have any alloys or any. It was made of no material that would be difficult to source on planet Earth. Like we have all the alloys that have ever been invented in all of the universe or Tamarin. So again, they kind of yada that, and not very well. They I think we talked about this last week. They need to get better at the technobabble to make things make more sense. So anyway, any other thoughts before we wrap up? I think that's the last. Well, at the very end, Crane is in Arkham Asylum, and then. Rachel like forces something into him, like and I think when she got the pit, the stuff from the pit, she pulled up all the darkness that the pit was pulled from people, and she fed that to him. To basically make him go insane, so he doesn't try to get out again. That was a weird ending. I don't know. What did you think of that ending there?
Yeah, that was pretty weird, and I think that they didn't want Crane to be a threat to them again. That's probably why they did what they did. But it still didn't make any sense as to why did they have to involve Rachel to do that? I mean, yeah, Rachel's powerful, but there's no point in doing that unless you really want to really want Crane to not be involved in some ways. I guess I don't know as to I didn't get that whatsoever as to dark magic. Then it kind of consumes Crane and makes him relives all those bad memories about the Titans and stuff like that. That's kind of I think it was kind of weak, and they maybe because they felt that they needed some resolution with Crane, but still, it just didn't make any sense. It's just like live in horror forever kind of thing to make him suffer, I guess. Maybe?
I guess the thought there was, and it wasn't. It's like a thought that's not. You know how in high school sometimes kids like write out a subject matter or a subject of an essay, but they don't really flesh it out. I think the thought there was that he's all about fear, and now he has to relive other people's fear over and over again. The fears that she pulled from the pit. But like, it's a good topic sentence to an essay, but it wasn't fleshed out into anything that made sense. It wasn't the audience shouldn't have to do so much work to try to figure out what the artist or the writer of the show is trying to do. I mean, it's not. We're not watching interpretive dance here. We're watching a television show. So why are we doing? We're trying to connect so many dots here to make it make sense. But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I just kind of chalked it off as though it's just a resolution for him to not be a threat for the foreseeable future. It's like make him suffer through all that pain and memory and not be engaged in some ways because he is still alive. And then also he did kind of threaten them to say like, oh, this is just temporary for me. I'm going to get out. But then it's like, okay, you're going to get out? Really? So we're going to really put you through some trauma before you even think about trying to get out. So I guess that kind of like tries to sideline him in some ways so that who knows what's going to happen with Crane in the future. Maybe he doesn't appear ever again. Maybe there's going to be a new enemy in season 4. Who knows?
Yeah. So, any, I guess, final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm with you on this, Nathan. Is that I think that in season 4, when it does come out, I think we're going to have to watch it in bunches, like probably 2 or 3 episodes, in bunches, so that we can get more content, and also it can make a little bit more sense in terms of the writing. Because I do feel as though, in some ways, like you mentioned before, it's almost like a Netflix show where, if we watch like some of those old Marvel Netflix shows like separately per week, it would have been really bad actually. And I think that, looking back on it, I think that I do agree with what you're saying about this, is that if we do kind of go to it, just watch 2 or 3 episodes per week. I think that there's definitely some DC I agree with you that there's definitely some DC content that's much more worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And I'll be curious to kind of see, now that Titans is over, What If is also over. Like, there is a gap right now. I know that Eternals is coming out probably in about 2 weeks' time. So there is a gap in terms of content for me that I want to kind of catch up on maybe, and to kind of look into some new things. And so it'll be pretty interesting to kind of see what's out there and have some more freedoms to kind of, again, explore what's out there on streaming. And I know that there's some things that are in the back burner that I haven't even picked up yet and that are really pop right now. So we'll see. I mean, for my kind of own viewing pleasures. So we'll see what transpires in terms of what we review and what I kind of personally want to watch.
Well, there's a lot of things still on right now. I mean, I know that there aren't major. So, like, as I said, Doom Patrol is still on. It has a shorter season than Titans. I think it has 8 episodes, maybe 10 episodes instead of the 13. So it's in its second half of its season right now. It also got It also got renewed for another season. I think it's definitely worth your people's time. I think it's a little bit too far into the season right now for us to review that, but we might review the entire season when it ends. I'm going to review the entire season of Lower Decks, Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm going to review Young Justice as well. So week to week, I'll start reviewing that. And also coming up next week is Star Trek Prodigy, which is the Nickelodeon show. So I'm going to probably watch that and see if it's worthwhile. We had a conversation earlier in the year about how you can write a kid show well enough. There's some kid shows that are written well enough that adults can watch, and it remains to be seen whether or not the Star Trek Prodigy show is a show like, say, Avatar, or even Bad Batch, because Bad Batch had its kiddie episodes, and then by the end of the season it was pretty watchable and pretty good. So yeah. Anyway, we will be back with more content, and that's what we think of this episode. But we are really interested to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below, like and subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you next week. All right, bye guys. Thanks.